The banquet hall shimmered like a jewel carved out of starlight, its high crystalline arches bending and refracting the glow of alien suns bottled into hovering orbs. Musicians from 3 species played instruments that hummed, buzzed, and howled in a rhythm that seemed to defy gravity. And me? I sat stiffly at the end of a table designed for bodies at least a head taller and 2 shoulders broader than mine, knees knocking against its underside, trying not to knock over the gold-plated chalice of something that smelled like fermented jet fuel. The alien queen was radiant on her throne, her long ears sweeping back elegantly, her silver hair cascading like a comet's tail. Every eye in the room was fixed on her, every eye except mine, which were glued to the mysterious velvet pouch sitting in my lap. A pouch that just hours earlier I'd purchased from a one-eyed trader on the station's lower deck after he'd whispered, "Very rare, very powerful, very, safe." That should have been my warning. Now, in the middle of a galactic court where half the attendees had fangs and the other half had antennae, I was supposed to present the queen with a gift. A human diplomat had told me, something symbolic will do. I should have gone with flowers or maybe one of those earth snow globes. Instead I had, well, whatever was in this pouch. I rose when her steward announced my name. The hall quieted, the music hushed, and hundreds of alien dignitaries leaned forward. My heart thumped hard enough to be heard across the star system. I walked up, bowed well, bent awkwardly because my back cracked halfway, and then presented the pouch. "My queen," I said, trying to sound grand but probably sounding like someone asking for a bathroom key. "A humble offering from Earth." She accepted the pouch, graceful fingers sliding over the ties, her long ears twitching with curiosity. When she opened it, a gasp rippled across the hall. 2 eggs gleamed inside, pearlescent and faintly warm with veins of gold threading their shells. They pulsed as though alive. I swallowed. "Souvenirs," I muttered. The queen's eyes glowed faintly in the hall's refracted light. "Do you know what these are, human?" "Oh," I said, "breakfast." Laughter exploded around the hall, some of it genuine, some of it a little too sharp, like predators amused before the pounce. The queen's lips curved into a smile that carried both delight and a glint of danger. "Dragon eggs," she said softly, raising them for all to see. Murmurs swept the crowd. Extinct in most galaxies, revered in others, feared everywhere. The eggs pulsed again as if agreeing. I stared at them, then at her, then back at them. "Oh," I managed. "So, not breakfast." The queen laughed, a clear bell-like sound that seemed to untangle some of the tension in the hall. "Humans," she said, "always full of surprises." She leaned close, whispering just loud enough for me to hear. "When a man brings a woman such a gift on the night of her coronation, in some cultures it is a proposal." My face burned hot enough to ignite a sun. "No, no, no," I stammered. It's just a gift, totally platonic, intergalactic friendship, like giving someone socks." The queen tilted her head, her ears twitching with amusement. "Then I shall treasure them as I would the finest socks in the universe." More laughter filled the hall, this time warmer. The tension eased, though I couldn't shake the sense that I'd just triggered something monumental. The eggs pulsed again, faint flames flickering under their shells, and for the briefest moment I swore one of them looked right at me. The feast resumed. Alien delicacies were paraded onto the table, steaming platters of iridescent worms, bubbling flasks of phosphorescent soup, a roasted beast that blinked at me even as the queen carved it. I nibbled carefully at a piece of something gelatinous that kept trying to crawl off my plate, and when it succeeded, I pretended it was part of the entertainment. Across the table, the queen raised her chalice and caught my eye. "Human," she said, her voice carrying above the music, "your gift is most unusual. I shall keep it safe and see what destiny it brings." A cheer rose around her throne. Courtiers clapped, fangs glinted, antennae waved in approval. I forced a smile, pretending to bask in the glow of my apparent success, but inside I was screaming. Because I had no idea what I'd just given her. Because the eggs pulsed again. Because, with my luck, destiny was about to bite me in the rear. It had been 7 years since the banquet, 7 long years during which I had almost completely forgotten about the so-called dragon eggs. My life had settled into a rhythm of interstellar odd jobs, unclogging sewage recyclers on mining stations, patching hulls for smugglers who swore their ships had accidentally collided with asteroid patrol drones, and once, only once, rewiring a luxury cruiser's entertainment system so a galactic senator's favorite soap operas streamed in ultra-definition, while the rest of the crew got only static. That last one paid surprisingly well. Every now and then, during long hours floating in zero-G with a wrench in my teeth, I thought back to the alien queen. She had looked so amused, so mysterious, so radiant that night. And those eggs, if I thought about them at all, I chalked up as some harmless trinket. Honestly, I assumed they had cracked, turned out to be fake, and ended up on a palace shelf labeled oddities from Earth. Do not touch. That assumption died the moment her summons arrived. The message was impossible to ignore. A royal seal of pulsating silver ink, delivered via a holographic courier drone that hovered in my cramped workshop until I nearly brained myself on the low ceiling. The drone projected her image, tall, regal, those long ears twitching with what I recognized as both amusement and irritation. "Human," she said. "No name, no title, just human. Already a bad sign. You will present yourself at the palace within 3 cycles. Your gift has hatched." The drone fizzled out, leaving behind a faint scent of ozone and my rapidly escalating panic. 3 cycles later, after pawning half my tools to afford transport, I found myself once more in the crystalline halls of her court. Nothing had changed. Still towering arches that refracted light into rainbow shards, still courtiers dressed in fabrics that probably cost more than my entire ship. And there she was, the queen herself, radiant as ever, though the faint crease between her brows suggested I was in deep trouble. "You," she said when I bowed before her throne, "do you recall the gift you bestowed upon me?" "Oh," I said, "depends which one. I also gave you a bottle opener shaped like a kangaroo, very useful, or so I've been told." The court chuckled politely, but the queen's expression didn't soften. She raised her hand, and the floor panels shifted open. Chains rattled, gears ground, and a massive platform rose slowly into view. On that platform sat a creature so large it made the entire hall feel suddenly claustrophobic. Its scales shimmered like molten metal, eyes burning with internal fire. Wings stretched once, just once, and the downdraft nearly flattened me against the floor. The dragon yawned. A tongue of plasma flickered out, leaving scorch marks on the marble tiles. Then it blinked at me almost like recognition. I swallowed hard. "So, not a breakfast omelet then." The queen arched a silvery brow. "Your gift has grown spirited." "Spirited?" I said. "That thing sneezes and will need a new palace." As if on cue, the dragon sneezed. A fireball whooshed out, vaporizing an ornamental statue of some long-dead emperor. The court gasped. I threw myself behind a chair that was definitely not rated for dragon sneeze defense. When the smoke cleared, the queen was still seated calmly, her gown untouched, her ears twitching in what might have been suppressed laughter. "This," she said, "is now your responsibility." "Mine?" My voice cracked hard enough to embarrass a teenager. "With all due respect, Your Majesty, I'm not exactly dragon parent material. I can barely keep a cactus alive, and that doesn't breathe fire." The queen leaned forward, resting her chin on her hand. "The creature follows you. It obeys you more readily than it obeys my beastmasters. Perhaps it senses kinship." "Kinship?" I looked at the dragon. The dragon blinked. I blinked back. Somewhere deep inside, I swore I heard the faintest asterisk meep in my brain, like an impatient toddler demanding attention. "Nope," I said. "Absolutely not. I refuse to be telepathically guilt-tripped by a flamethrower with wings." The court erupted into laughter again, but the queen's gaze pinned me like a bug under glass. "Nevertheless, you will remain. You will help us control it." Or, she let the silence hang, a smile tugging at her lips. "I suppose I could allow it to follow you back to your workshop, though I suspect your landlord would object." I pictured my shabby spaceport hangar, the one where a malfunctioning air filter already made breathing difficult, now containing a dragon the size of a battle cruiser. The mental image included me being roasted alive as it tried to curl up on my cot. "I'll stay," I croaked. The Queen's smile widened, satisfied. "Excellent." The next few days blurred into chaos. Everywhere I went, the dragon followed. To the gardens, where it tried to eat the ornamental trees. To the training grounds, where it accidentally fried 36 war drones with a single burp. To the marketplace, where it flattened half the stalls while chasing what it thought was a giant squeaky toy. Each disaster ended with me being dragged back before the Queen, who seemed half exasperated, half delighted. "It adores you," she said one evening, watching as the dragon attempted to curl up at my feet like an oversized cat. The floor cracked under its weight, but I was too tired to protest. "I think adores is alien royalty code for actively ruining my life," I muttered. The Queen's ears twitched again, always the telltale sign of amusement. "You exaggerate. Already the people call it the crown's pet. It is a symbol of my reign's power." "Symbol?" I pointed at the smoking crater where a fountain used to be. "Your new symbol just vaporized the only decent coffee stand in the city. That's not power, that's tyranny." She laughed then openly, the sound echoing like chimes through the palace. "You will adjust. You always do." And despite myself, I laughed too. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was the absurdity of standing next to an alien queen and a dragon the size of a house. But a part of me, deep down, felt the weight of what had started. 7 years ago, I had given her a gift without thinking. Now that gift had grown teeth, wings, and a fondness for setting things on fire. And whether I liked it or not, I was apparently its favorite human in the galaxy. The dragon grew faster than seemed biologically possible. 1 week, it was the size of a royal carriage. The next, it loomed over palace towers, its wings blotting out the sky when it stretched. Every new inch it gained meant another crisis for me, the poor fool apparently assigned as its unwilling handler. Palace life had turned into a circus of dragon-related disasters. At dawn, I'd find scorch marks across the courtyard tiles where it had practiced fire-breathing while sleepwalking. By mid-morning, the royal chef stormed to me with complaints. The beast had eaten half the livestock reserved for state banquets. And in the afternoons, well, that was reserved for rebuilding whatever the dragon had flattened while chasing palace guards it mistook for shiny toys. One particular afternoon, I was woken from a nap under a maintenance console by the sound of panicked bells. I stumbled into the courtyard to see the dragon perched on the palace's outer wall, wings flapping like storm sails, trying to launch itself into the sky. "Don't you dare!" I shouted, waving my arms. Airspace clearance requires at least 12 forms, 3 inspections, and a bribe to the traffic authority. The dragon roared, and the force of it nearly knocked me off my feet. Then, with a leap that cracked stone beneath its claws, it soared upward. The downdraft sent guards tumbling and shredded half the Queen's prized gardens. I could only gape as it climbed higher and higher until it was just a silhouette against the suns. The Queen appeared beside me, unruffled as always, her long ears twitching in the wind. It was only a matter of time. I turned on her. Only a matter of time before what? It goes sightseeing across the empire like a flying disaster tour. She hid a smile behind her hand. "Perhaps, or perhaps it seeks a place to stretch its wings. Surely you understand the need for freedom." "Freedom, yes. Setting the city on fire, less so." As if summoned by my words, a distant asterisk whoomph echoed across the valley. Smoke rose in the direction of the merchant district. By the time we arrived, me crammed into a guard skimmer, the Queen seated elegantly as though this were a casual outing. The dragon had already caused a scene. Stalls smoldered, vendors screamed, and a fountain bubbled furiously with steam where the beast had dunked its head like it was sipping soup. Citizens scattered in panic, but the dragon ignored them all, focused instead on a gigantic floating balloon shaped like a fruit. It thinks it's food, I realized aloud. Giant fruit on a string. Convince it otherwise, the queen said, her tone as casual as someone asking me to fetch more tea. I stumbled forward, cupping my hands. Hey, overgrown furnace. That's not food, it's advertising. Do you know what advertising is? It's, oh, never mind, you don't care. The dragon huffed, and the balloon burst in a spray of rubbery scraps. It chewed them anyway, looked vaguely disappointed, and spat out a fireball that incinerated the remains. The crowd roared with outrage. Someone shouted, "The crown's pet will destroy us all." Another yelled, "Control your beast, queen, or we will." The queen's calm never faltered, but I saw the tightness in her jaw. She turned to me. "You see, it adores you, yet it tests me. You must learn to guide it, or the people will lose faith." Guide it? I pointed at the dragon, which had now wedged its head inside a bakery, gulping down entire trays of sweetbread. It's not a puppy, it's a walking natural disaster. Still I tried. I marched up, clapped my hands, and shouted, "No, bad dragon, spit that out." It lifted its head, crumbs cascading from its teeth, and gave me a look that said very clearly, "Make me." Before I could think of something clever, the dragon leaned down and gently nudged me with its nose, almost knocking me over. Then, with a satisfied rumble, it sprawled across the entire plaza, crushing 3 wagons and a small monument. Its tail swished lazily, sending bystanders running. The queen stepped up beside me, her gown fluttering in the heat. "See, it listens." "Listens?" I sputtered. "It just turned your marketplace into a pancake." She hid another laugh. "And yet it spared you. That means something." That night, after the fires were put out and the crowds dispersed, the dragon curled up outside my quarters like an oversized guard dog. I sat on the balcony, staring at it while nursing a glass of something the palace servants called *moonflower brew. It tasted like motor oil mixed with mint, but after the day I'd had, it worked. The queen visited, her silhouette framed by the starlight refracting through the palace spires. She leaned against the railing, her ears twitching softly. "My people are uneasy," she said. "Some call the dragon a curse. Others whisper it will bring war." "I'm not surprised," I muttered. "I've seen insurance claims smaller than this thing's sneeze radius." She laughed quietly. "And yet it is magnificent. Do you not feel it human? The power in its wings, the fire in its heart. It could unite worlds or burn them." "That's comforting," I said. "Really makes me want to sleep tonight." Her eyes lingered on me, thoughtful. "You still do not understand the bond. It follows you, not me. Perhaps you are meant to share its destiny." I choked on my drink. "Me? Destiny? I'm a glorified mechanic who once got fired for accidentally rewiring a captain's shower to spray engine coolant. I don't do destiny." "Nevertheless," she said softly, "destiny has found you." The dragon rumbled in its sleep, smoke curling from its nostrils. For a brief moment, the sound was almost soothing, like a giant purr. I lay back in my chair, groaning. Great destiny snores. And though the city smoldered from its latest rampage, and the queen's words weighed heavier than I wanted to admit, I couldn't help but laugh. Because only in my life could a careless gift from years ago grow wings, breathe fire, and decide I was its favorite human chew toy. The next week, palace life took on a strange rhythm, half royal ceremony, half disaster management drill. The dragon's presence had turned the empire's glittering capital into what I could only describe as a very large, very expensive pet enclosure. Every morning began with the same question from the queen's stewards: "Where is it now?" And every morning I found myself pointing somewhere that inevitably caused a collective groan. Sometimes rumors spread faster than plasma fire across dry fields. By the time the dragon reached full maturity, the entire quadrant was buzzing with stories. Some claimed the queen had tamed a weapon older than the stars. Others whispered she was consorting with forbidden forces, that no mortal could control such a creature. My personal favorite rumor suggested the dragon was my illegitimate child, which raised a number of uncomfortable questions about interspecies biology and exactly what people thought I'd been doing during my quiet years. The truth was far less glamorous. The dragon wasn't tame, it was bored. And a bored dragon is worse than a rebellious army. It started small, a broken aqueduct here, a flattened tower there. But soon the beast's daily strolls became international incidents. Neighboring systems sent envoys demanding explanations. One particularly angry ambassador shouted, "Your pet roasted 3 of our cargo freighters." The Queen calmly replied, "You left them parked in its sunning field." That didn't exactly calm things down. Meanwhile, the dragon had discovered it could lay eggs, thousands of them. I found the first clutch in the volcanic caves beneath the capital. The eggs glowed faintly, humming with the same golden veins as the originals. I counted 30 before giving up. I told the Queen, "I think we might need a bigger palace." Her eyes widened. "It is female." I blinked. "Wait, you didn't know. You're the expert in alien zoology." She gave me a look that suggested she was reconsidering my continued existence. "No one is an expert in dragons, human. They were myth before your gift." "Well, congratulations," I said. "Now we have a myth franchise coming soon. Dragon Eggs, the sequel. Attack of the Fire-Breathing Toddlers." Of course, the discovery couldn't stay secret. Word spread, and suddenly every galactic power wanted their share. Some sent gifts to curry favor. Others dispatched spies. One particularly bold faction tried to steal an egg. The dragon discovered them halfway through the heist. By morning, their ship was a melted slag sculpture decorating the harbor. Still, the whispers grew louder. Armies whispered of capturing the brood to use as weapons. Merchants dreamed of selling eggs for fortunes. Religious cults proclaimed the dragons heralded the end of the age. And me. I mostly dreamed of a quiet corner of the galaxy where nothing had wings, fire breath, or the inclination to follow me around like a puppy the size of a dreadnought. But the dragon made sure I wasn't going anywhere. One evening, as I tried sneaking toward the hangar with a half-packed bag, the dragon intercepted me. It lowered its massive head, blocking the entire corridor, eyes glowing like molten suns. I sighed. "You don't want me to leave, do you?" A low rumble vibrated through my bones, not unfriendly but final. Then, because humiliation was apparently part of our bond, it nudged me gently back toward the palace with its snout, like a farmer herding livestock. The Queen was waiting in the throne room, already smirking. "Running away, human." "Not running," I protested. "Strategic relocation." She laughed softly, her ears twitching with delight. "You are bound to it, and it to you. There is no escape." "Great," I muttered. "So I'm basically a dragon leash now." She tilted her head. "Not a leash, a partner." The word startled me more than it should have. Partner. As though this chaos was something I had chosen. As though I had any control over it. That night I dreamed of firestorms. The eggs cracked open one by one, and tiny dragons crawled out, their scales glowing like embers. They screeched in unison, and the sound echoed like war drums across the stars. When I woke, I half hoped it was just my overactive imagination. Then the alarms began ringing. By the time I reached the volcanic caverns, the first hatchlings had already emerged. Smaller than their mother but still massive, they stumbled about like clumsy toddlers, clumsy, plasma-breathing toddlers. One sneezed and melted an entire stalactite. Another tried to climb its sibling and accidentally set its own tail on fire. The smell of burning scales lingered in the air. The Queen arrived beside me, calm as always. "Magnificent," she whispered. "Magnificent." I yelled over the chaos. "This is a daycare nightmare with flamethrowers." She chuckled. "You should be proud, your gift has multiplied." "Oh yes," I groaned. Every man dreams of leaving behind a legacy of widespread property damage. It took the entire royal guard to herd the hatchlings back into the caverns, and even then, they scattered like rebellious fireworks. Citizens panicked. Markets shut down. Neighboring empires began mobilizing fleets under the pretense of protecting galactic peace. War felt closer with every passing hour. That evening, as the sun dipped behind the fractured horizon, I stood on the balcony with the Queen. Below us, the mother dragon curled protectively around her brood, wings spread wide like a living shield. "Do you see now?" The Queen asked quietly. "This is more than chaos. This is destiny. The galaxy will bow or burn." I swallowed hard, trying to ignore the lump in my throat. Yeah, well, destiny really needs a babysitter. And despite the fear tightening my chest, I couldn't help but laugh. Because, of course, out of all the humans in the galaxy, destiny had picked me. The guy who once electrocuted himself fixing a toaster to wrangle a dragon army. It turned out that raising baby dragons was less like training war beasts and more like trying to babysit a squad of heavily armed toddlers with jet engines strapped to their backs. Every day, the palace grounds shook with their antics. One of them discovered how to hover in place, only to lose balance and crash into the royal armory, which now looked like it had been through 10 wars instead of one. Another sneezed so hard it blew a hole straight through the palace wall. The Queen, naturally, took all of this with serene dignity. "They are learning," she said one morning as a hatchling cheerfully gnawed on one of the palace spires like it was a breadstick. "Learning what?" I snapped. "Structural demolition." Her long ears twitched with amusement. "Patience, control. They will follow their mother and through her perhaps you." I glanced down at the mother dragon, who at that moment was trying to roll onto her back for a nap, but had instead crushed half the royal gardens. Yeah, because control is exactly the word I'd use here. Meanwhile, the galaxy outside our little volcanic daycare center was unraveling. Fleets massed at borders. Politicians frothed with righteous speeches. Merchants sold dragon-slaying lances by the dozen, though most were just sharpened scrap metal painted red and advertised as anti-fire certified. Spies flooded the capital. I caught one disguised as a palace cook trying to smuggle a dragon scale in a stew pot. The dragon, unimpressed with the ruse, simply ate him and the pot together. By now, the dragons had decided I was one of them. This was not as flattering as it sounds. One particularly affectionate hatchling insisted on following me everywhere, nuzzling its giant, scaly head against my shoulder as if I were a fellow dragon with slightly disappointing wings. Whenever I tried to leave, it would yelp like an abandoned puppy and breathe smoke into my hair. The Queen thought this was hilarious. "It has chosen you," she said with a sly smile. "That is an honor." "An honor," I said, brushing soot out of my eyebrows. "It's like being chosen by a flamethrower to be its chew toy." The Queen laughed so hard her crown slipped sideways. For someone tasked with ruling a kingdom under siege, she found my suffering endlessly entertaining. But beneath the humor, tension crackled. A delegation from the Galactic Coalition finally arrived, demanding a peaceful resolution. Their leader, a tall, humorless insectoid whose translator rendered every word like a broken alarm clock, declared, "Surrender the brood or face consequences." The Queen sat tall on her throne, her golden eyes unflinching. "We will not surrender children," she said simply. I should have admired her resolve. Instead, I raised my hand like an idiot and asked, "Quick question, by consequences, do you mean diplomatic sanctions or, death rays?" The insectoid's antennae twitched. "Yes." Not helpful. Of course, the dragons chose that moment to stampede into the hall. 10 hatchlings barreled in, wings flapping wildly, their screeches shaking the walls. The insectoid delegation scattered like spilled rice. One diplomat leapt into a vase to hide. The dragons weren't being aggressive. They were just excited to see me. One of them plopped down at my feet like an oversized cat, while another playfully tried to lick the insectoid ambassador, nearly dissolving him in acidic saliva. "See," I said weakly, "totally harmless, just oversized pigeons." The coalition didn't look convinced. They left in a hurry, and the moment they were gone, the Queen turned to me, eyes narrowing. "You must understand," she said softly, The galaxy will not let this stand. They will come with fleets, with fire. I sighed. And let me guess, you're expecting me to have some genius plan. She tilted her head, ears brushing against her shoulders. You are the one who began this. You gave me the eggs. You are part of this destiny. Destiny. There it was again, like a bad joke the universe kept repeating. That night I wandered into the dragon caverns, where the hatchlings slept in a glowing heap of scales and wings. The mother dragon lifted her head, golden eyes reflecting the light of molten rivers. For a moment I almost swore I heard her voice, not with words but with a weight that pressed into my mind. A bond undeniable, ancient. I whispered, I just wanted to give a nice gift. Something shiny. Not all of this. The dragon's chest rumbled, a sound like both a purr and a volcano preparing to erupt. Suddenly, one of the hatchlings stirred, trotting toward me. It placed its head on my lap like a dog begging for comfort. Against every instinct, I stroked its warm scales. Sparks danced across my fingers, harmless but alive. And in that moment, I realized the truth. The dragons weren't weapons, not unless we made them so. They were children, powerful, yes, but still children. And if the galaxy wanted them destroyed, then, well, someone had to stand between. The next morning, I told the queen as much. Her eyes softened, though her voice stayed firm. Then you must be prepared to fight for them, for us. I groaned. Great, me, the reluctant space nanny, now in charge of saving the galaxy. Do I at least get a uniform? She smirked. You already smell of smoke, that should suffice. And just like that, my fate was sealed. The galaxy was sharpening its swords, the dragons were growing by the day, and I, armed with nothing more than sarcasm and bad luck, was expected to keep it all from exploding. The warships arrived at dawn, their sleek hulls slicing through the atmosphere like knives through fabric. Fleets from 3 neighboring systems had coordinated what they hoped would be the ultimate display of power. Overwhelming force aimed at the Queen, the dragons, and, unfortunately, me. From my vantage point on the highest balcony, I counted every ship, every turret, every antenna that twitched with menace. The mother dragon stood nearby, wings unfurled like a living fortress, her hatchlings clustered protectively at her sides. The queen, serene as ever, adjusted her crown, ears twitching with that ever-present hint of amusement. "Ready, human?" she asked. I held up a pair of plasteel gauntlets I'd welded together the night before, feeling about as ready as a cat in a space storm. Ready-ish. Mostly terrified, but professional-level terrified. She laughed softly. You will learn courage, or at least cleverness in the process. Follow your instincts. Instincts I had very few. But one thing had become clear over the past months. The dragons trusted me, followed me, and in some strange, inexplicable way communicated with me. I could sense their moods, anticipate their movements. The first attack came as the fleets fired long-range plasma cannons. The explosions lit up the sky, each one shaking the palace foundations. Hatchlings screeched, diving and dodging in coordinated chaos, their mother roaring as fire licked the metal of the enemy ships. I found myself running beside the dragon, waving my gauntlets like a man trying to conduct an orchestra made entirely of destruction. Left, no, wait, dive, dodge. I shouted. Somehow they obeyed, or at least enough to avoid getting blown apart. The queen coordinated her forces with a calm precision, using energy shields and gravity wells to protect the city. But the real battlefield was above. In the clouds of smoke and plasma,